Every map before 1850 shows Tartary, then gone. Not conquered, not renamed, deleted from history. Buildings reattributed, technology hidden, an empire larger than Rome erased in one generation. Here's why they did it. The first, most unsettling pieces of evidence aren't found in ancient tombs or military diaries. They are found right beneath your feet, in the basements of your own cities. Drive through the grand old urban centers Chicago, St. Petersburg, San Francisco, and look at the architecture of the late 1800s. The massive neoclassical buildings, the stone libraries, the ornate city halls. They are hailed as the triumphs of the industrial age. But something is wrong with their foundation. Park your car and walk up to the ground floor of that historic building. Notice the imposing arches that seem to disappear directly into the pavement. This isn't a quirky design, it is evidence of a catastrophe known among researchers as the mud flood. Walk around the back of the building. Find the alley access to the basement. Descend the steps, and you will find yourself in what should be a utility room, but it often possesses the high, decorative ceilings and imposing brickwork of a former parlor floor. The basement is not a basement. It is the original, ornate ground floor, completely submerged. We are not talking about simple, localized ground sinking. This evidence is global and consistent. Across continents, buildings constructed allegedly around the year 1850 to 1870 are sitting in 6, 8, even 12 feet of deposited earth. To achieve this requires a catastrophic worldwide event, a sudden, immense deposition of material that buried the lower levels of a pre-existing global civilization. The revelation of the impossible basement is the moment the official narrative breaks. You see a bricked-up lower archway of a city hall. It is clearly designed as a grand entrance, perhaps for carriages, now filled solid with brick. Look close, and you see the color of the mortar is different, a modern seal on an ancient door. Later, accessing the building permits, we discover that this basement was, in fact, listed as the main administrative level in initial sketches. This means an entire, functional level of world-class architecture was buried and then intentionally redesignated as subterranean space. This is the first layer of the cover-up. The cataclysm happened. The world was flooded, not necessarily by water, but by an immense flow of mud, silt, and material that simultaneously wiped out large populations and buried the advanced infrastructure. The remaining survivors, the people we now call the rebuilders of the mid-19th century, didn't build these incredible structures. They excavated them and claimed them. But why claim them? It wasn't just about credit. It was about a power source. What were these structures really built to harness? This wasn't a secret kept by accident. It was a deliberate lie told by the new ruling class to claim legitimacy over the inherited infrastructure. They didn't want you to know that the beautiful library was already 500 years old when they dug the dirt out of its windows. They especially didn't want you to know what caused the inundation. The evidence points to a global synchronization of lies. If a massive catastrophic event occurred, surely there must be some record of it, some official explanation, even a distorted one. We found it in the digital archives of the Library of Congress. A fragile, water-stained 19th century official report on geology and surveying dated 1883. The report spends 50 pages detailing the composition of the soil layers across the American Midwest. Tucked deep within the text, away from the table of contents, is a vague, 3-line reference to the Great Inundation, described as an unprecedented global weather pattern that led to an unusual displacement of topsoil. But immediately following this reference, the language shifts. They mention the cataclysm only to smother the truth in overly complex geological jargon designed to confuse and dismiss any real investigation. This document hints at the true timeline. The cover-up began the moment the catastrophe subsided, starting with the immediate confusion of the official record. They didn't erase the evidence. They simply classified it under technical names that only academic specialists would ever see. This official report is incomplete. Several pages are torn out. One of the surviving pages contains a cross-reference code pointing to an entirely different department, the Department of Transportation, and a different kind of document, early blueprints for rail lines. The note beside the code is scrawled in faint pencil. Avoid all areas marked high resonance field. High resonance field. A geological or an architectural term, the trail has moved from architecture and geology into something far more forbidden. We are no longer looking for a vanished empire. We are looking for a suppressed technology that was tied to the land itself. The paper trail is thin, but the cover-up's sheer complexity, the synchronized global relabeling of architecture, and the coordinated obfuscation of geological events suggests an authority far more powerful than any single nation-state. The investigation has only just broken the surface layer of silt and lies. The truth is buried beneath thousands of miles of redacted paper and feet of deposited earth. Subscribe for the full unredacted report breakdown in the next chapter. We must now follow that rail blueprint and find out exactly what high resonance field means, because the architects of the deletion went to immense trouble to make sure we never would. The real question is, who were the architects of this great lie, and why were they so terrified of the technology they buried? The moment of the cataclysm, the mud flood, was only the beginning. The real, lasting destruction was done by the people who inherited the ruins. We found the obscure geological report mentioning the Great Inundation, quickly followed by impenetrable, obfuscating scientific language. The authors of that report weren't trying to record history. They were trying to hide a crime in plain sight. They knew the world had been fundamentally altered, and their job was to create a new, less threatening narrative for the survivors, a narrative of discovery and progress. Our investigation must move from the what to the who. Who were the architects of this massive deletion? To answer that, we must look at the second, most suspicious piece of evidence. The synchronized reattribution of world-class architecture. Consider the grandest buildings of the late 1800s. Libraries, museums, customs, houses. They share a striking, consistent style, massive scale, ornate neoclassical columns, huge dome roofs, and advanced masonry. We are told these were built by the new American or Russian industrialists in impossibly short periods. Take the New York Public Library, for example. We are told it was constructed around the turn of the century. Historical accounts claim it was a monumental undertaking, built by men with simple tools in a relatively short time. But when you look at the scale of the stone cutting, the flawless fit of the cyclopean blocks, and the sheer volume of material, it strains credulity. The official story is a placeholder. This pattern is not local, it is global. In London, Paris, and Washington, D.C., the same structures suddenly appear, sometimes credited to a local architect who had never designed anything of similar scale before, and sometimes the construction records simply vanish. It's as if a worldwide committee sat down and decided which Tartarian megastructures they would dig out and claim, and which they would leave buried. We cross-referenced these alleged construction timelines. Time after time, we found claims like built in 9 months by hand, or completed in 2 years with local labor. The complexity of the structures, the internal steelwork, and the external masonry would take a modern engineering firm years, not months, to simply draft, let alone construct. This suggests these structures were not built, they were relabeled. The most telling sign of the cover-up lies in the deliberate gaps in the record. Go and search for the original building plans, the high-resolution construction photographs, the material sourcing receipts for these structures. The paper trail ends abruptly. Thanks for watching, and subscribe channel Some Study of Helpia Naus. We have meticulously detailed records for far less significant projects from the same era, yet these monumental, defining buildings seem to have sprung fully formed from the earth. The records were not lost in a fire. They were removed by an authority. The censorship was even applied to the history of the people. Search for the language, the written script, and the royal lineage of the Tartarian people prior to 1850. Again, the record goes silent. When information does appear, it is immediately conflicting. filled with deliberate errors, reducing a massive, technologically unified culture into disparate warring tribal groups. We managed to uncover a rare photographic negative from an 1897 World's Fair in Nashville. The photograph depicts the Parthenon replica, a colossal structure allegedly built just months before the photograph was taken. But the original plate, when viewed under high magnification, clearly shows erosion and aging on the stone inconsistent with its claimed construction date. It was an aged Tartarian ruin that had been cosmetically refurbished for the fair and then quickly miscredited. This photography negative was a slip-up, a piece of evidence the censors failed to destroy. The entire Industrial Revolution, the shift to centralized fossil fuels and localized nation-states, seems to have been built not on human innovation, but on the successful concealment of a previous, superior system. Comment below with the most suspicious built-in-a-year building you know of. This effort, the synchronized cover-up across multiple global powers, confirms the existence of the force we refer to simply as they, a coordinated, controlling consensus that decided the future of the planet would be predicated on the absence of Tartaria. But if Tartaria was just a large empire, why the need for such total, coordinated deception? Empires are conquered, and their history rewritten. They are not erased from every single document and map simultaneously. The answer lies in a single, deeply buried footnote we found while tracing the records of the 1893 Chicago World's Fair. A patent for an obscure lighting fixture, linked to the Palace of Fine Arts, another suspiciously new structure, contained a bizarre technical reference. It mentions atmospheric power collection and free energy architecture. Tartaria wasn't just geographically large, it was technologically advanced, possessing energy solutions that would invalidate the entire centralized, extractive model of the industrial era. That is a threat worthy of being erased. But to erase the technology, they had to dismantle the power grid itself. And a key piece of that power grid is still standing, hidden in plain sight all over the world. To find proof of this suppressed technology, we must leave the archives and locate a surviving piece of their infrastructure. The trail of suppressed patents and technological footnotes leads us away from the grand cities and into a much stranger, more disturbing architectural feature, the star forts. These immense, geometrically perfect fortifications are found globally from Italy to Indonesia to North America. They share the same complex, mathematically precise, 5, 6, or 7-pointed star shapes. They are built with a mastery of geometry and engineering that seems impossible for the 17th or 18th centuries, the period they are typically ascribed to. We stand now at the edge of Fort Monroe, a massive, intact star fort in the United States. Its sheer size and the complexity of its design are overwhelming. Why build these geometrically precise, complex structures so far inland or in locations that don't fit strategic defense lines? The official explanation, defensive military engineering, is inadequate. It fails to account for the global uniformity of the design and the mathematical precision required. We believe their design is not purely defensive. The star fort is a giant geometric antenna, a piece of Tartarian energy infrastructure. The specific angles and facets of the fort's bastions are designed to interact with the Earth's natural resonant frequencies, possibly collecting or distributing the atmospheric power mentioned in the suppressed patent. The fort is not a combat zone, but a power hub. Look at the cyclopean masonry used in its walls. We are talking about stones weighing several tons, fitted together with almost perfect, paper-thin joints. This suggests a method of construction that didn't involve hundreds of men with ropes and pulleys, but perhaps a process of acoustic levitation, or even the ability to soften or reform stone with high-frequency energy. The official narrative tries to credit the construction to local workers over decades. We see the clear evidence of sophistication that defies 18th century construction methods. We needed to find proof of the energy use, not just the architecture. We got access to the oldest, most restricted sublevels of the fort, the areas deemed too structurally unstable for public access. The air is cold, thick, and smells of mineral dust and age. We move through low, damp passages, far below the parade grounds. We are checking for any anomaly in the stone, any seam or access point. In the deepest corner of the lowest battery, behind a wall reinforced with 20th century cinder blocks, we found an older access point. We carefully removed the modern obstruction. Behind it, the tunnel continued, leading not to a storage cellar, but to a perfectly circular, domed chamber. The walls were not rough masonry. They were smooth, almost polished material, clearly engineered for a non-defensive purpose. This was a power hub or a communication room, sealed off from the New World after the Great Cataclysm. The walls of the chamber were covered in a repeating pattern of carvings, a non-English, flowing script. While the majority of the glyphs are unknown, one phrase, repeated in the center of the dome, is recognizable through careful, painstaking cross-reference with rare historical linguistics texts. The translated glyphs read, "The Great Reset." This changes everything. The Great Reset. It is a term used by some historical groups to discuss population control and resource redistribution. Finding it carved into a piece of subterranean, advanced technology suggests the erasure of Tartaria was not a side effect of the mud flood. It was the entire purpose of the subsequent coordinated action. The forces that took over the world in the mid-19th century didn't just hide an empire. They actively orchestrated its eradication, including its advanced technological and social model. This was a hostile takeover carried out on a global scale. The architects of this control knew about the star forts, they knew about the free energy, and they put out of existence the civilization that relied on it. This raises the stakes from historical anomaly to a coordinated global culling event that enabled the cover-up. We must now confront the true motive. Why was the world reset? Why was the world reset? The Great Reset. It is the single most terrifying phrase we have uncovered. It implies the intentional suppression of a golden age to benefit a select, controlling power structure. If Tartaria possessed functional, free atmospheric energy and advanced building techniques, it means they lived in a world without resource scarcity. Imagine a global civilization where energy is not controlled, distributed, or sold. A civilization where housing and construction are easily managed through advanced technology. That is the antithesis of the centralized, corporatized, industrial model that emerged in the 1800s. The motive for the erasure becomes chillingly clear. Tartaria was put out of existence because its free energy and decentralized social structure represented a fundamental threat to the centralized, control-based economic and political system the emerging powers were trying to build. They didn't just want the territory. They wanted the monopoly on power. We see this struggle playing out in the history of science itself. We trace the records of brilliant inventors who dabbled in atmospheric energy men like Nikola Tesla, who attempted to build his Wardenclyffe Tower based on principles startlingly similar to the star forts. These projects were not shut down because they failed. They were shut down because they succeeded, thus threatening the investments made by early oil and banking tycoons. The conflict between Tesla and financiers like J.P. Morgan was simply the final end throes of Tartarian technology being publicly suppressed. Fossil fuels were not the evolution, they were the replacement, the controlled energy model that enabled the modern system of dependence. But how did they achieve the reset on a global scale? The answer lies in the orchestrated chaos that followed the mud flood. Official history records the mid-19th century as a period of vast, often unexplained wars, great affliction, and great population displacements. We suggest these were not side effects of natural conquest, but the mechanism used to clear populations and secure the Tartarian infrastructure. Imagine the planet buried in mud, populations scattered, communications broken. The new organized powers, they stepped into this void. The wars and the Great Affliction served two purposes. They distracted the survivors, and they provided the perfect cover for the systematic demolition of structures that couldn't be easily reattributed, like the obelisks and power hubs, and the organized relabeling of the massive, usable structures, like the libraries and city halls. The narrative of wars and pioneers erased the memory of a unified, technologically advanced past. The sense of danger around this truth is immediate and real. To expose the mechanism of global control is to threaten the foundation of the current world order. While securely backing up all the photographic evidence, geological reports, and translations, the screen of the isolated research laptop suddenly goes blank. The fan whirs down to silence. For 3 seconds, there is total darkness on the screen, followed by the appearance of a single bolded red line of text that flashes and is gone. Stop digging. The electricity returns instantly. The screen flickers back to the file directory. There is no trace of the message in the system logs. It was a digital echo, a warning that confirms that they, the authority that orchestrated the Great Reset a century and a half ago, are not a historical footnote. They are active, monitoring, and possess technological capabilities that allow them to breach any defense, even the supposedly secure environment we are operating in. The realization is cold. We are not just investigating history. We are in the crosshairs of an ongoing, active cover-up. We have confirmation. They are watching us in real time. This is not history. This is war. The line between investigator and target just vanished. Share this video. The more people who see this, the harder it is for them to make us stop. Just after the digital attack, an anonymous, untraceable message is delivered to our secured research phone. A simple, encrypted text containing 2 lines. The first line is a coordinate, a seemingly insignificant, desolate desert location, far from any established Tartarian site. The second line is an ancient Tartarian proverb we found in a partially translated linguistic text. The truth is not in the books, but in the silence between the waves. This is the final, physical piece of evidence we must retrieve. It suggests that Tartaria's technology, their free energy grid, may not be permanently put out of existence, but merely dormant. The final leg of the investigation, the journey to the coordinates, is risky. We know we are being watched, and this new location is remote, desolate, and strategically placed where any intervention could be explained away as an accident. The desert location is a basin of alkali flats, a silent, empty landscape where the heat shimmers off the ground. There is nothing visible here. No buildings, no ruins, no trace of the massive infrastructure we've been tracking. We follow the coordinates precisely to a specific point on the sand. Using ground-penetrating radar, we find the unmistakable outline of a massive, manufactured structure buried far beneath the surface, exactly where the proverb said it would be in the silence between the waves. After hours of carefully controlled excavation, the structure begins to emerge. It is not a house or a fort. It is a massive metallic obelisk, or antenna, sleek and tapering, made of a non-oxidizing alloy. It is completely silent, seemingly inert, yet perfectly preserved, having resisted the corrosion of the soil for over 150 years. This is the final physical proof. This is a piece of the atmospheric energy infrastructure that couldn't be easily reattributed as a Roman column or a memorial. It was too overtly technological, so they simply buried it and forgot the location. The Tartarian proverb now makes perfect sense. The truth is not in the books, but in the silence between the waves. The books are the false histories, the official narratives that lie. The waves are the controlled energy, the radio signals, the technological noise of the industrial age. The truth is in the silence, the suppressed, powerful, dormant energy that the New World Order had to switch off to implement their control. We believe this obelisk is one of the thousands of power collection or distribution points, part of a global, cohesive, free energy grid. As we deploy specialized sensor equipment and make contact with the base of the buried obelisk, the air around us crackles. Our own camera equipment immediately fails, the batteries instantly drained of all power. Simultaneously, we receive emergency reports from the nearest city. Over 100 miles away, the city suffered a massive, momentary power disruption, a brownout that lasted less than a second. We show the archival footage of the city lights instantly failing and then instantly returning. The technology is not put out of existence. It is merely dormant, resting beneath the earth. Our contact with the obelisk momentarily breached the suppression field. the technology that they used to keep the atmospheric power switched off, causing a surge in a distant power grid. The technology is real. The free energy is real. The philosophical truth emerges from the sand. Tartaria was not a country or an empire in the way we understand it today. It was a technological golden age, a worldwide unified network of advanced, free energy living that existed before the concepts of nation-states, borders, and resource scarcity were imposed. It was a global society that lived without the need for centralized control over the means of survival. That is why it had to be put out of existence. Not for territory, but for the most fundamental tool of control, scarcity. The investigation is complete. The evidence is clear. The architecture, the geological anomalies, the suppressed patents, the synchronized deletions, and the final, silent obelisk. A vast, sophisticated global civilization was deliberately and systematically erased from the world stage, replaced by a controlled, centralized, scarcity-based system. The cover-up is ongoing. The technological power remains suppressed. As we pull back from the site, the final shot of the obelisk shows it is no longer silent. High on the rim of the desert basin, small, hidden, solar-powered surveillance cameras are clearly visible, pointed directly at the site. They are still watching. The lingering question is posed directly to the viewer. If they erased a global civilization that lived without scarcity and energy poverty in just one generation, what else are they capable of erasing today? And what would happen if that silent obelisk suddenly switched back on? We have pulled back the curtain on a global deletion, confirming that the forces that put Tartaria out of existence are still active, still suppressing the advanced technology that lies dormant beneath our feet. If you believe the truth must surface, be sure to subscribe now to join this fight. And like and share this video because every view is a voice pushing back against the consensus they tried to enforce. We want to know which piece of architectural evidence, which impossible basement, shattered your view of history. Comment below and tell us what they tried to bury. Because until every obelisk is uncovered, the Great Reset is not a theory from the past, it is the blueprint for our future.